Oh my god,
So
what
I
if
was
they
just
played
standing
downstairs?
outside
What
and
if
was
they played
playing.
Dragon?
Oh my god,
Guys,
what if they actually let me in?
I literally
don't even think about it.
I have it right now.
Oh my god, why does Ellie get everything?
I do hate me.
Worst person you know, just
Did any of you get the recording?
Oh my god, guys, he's literally looking up to God and Tyler kneeling on the ground. No mercy.
Oh my gosh, lies everywhere.
Guys, let me
No
AI anywhere.
Thank
you.
The Lord! The Lord! The Lord! The Lord! The Lord! The Lord!
Oh, they uploaded the performance to YouTube.
Hey,
Thank
guys.
God.
Holy
Why do
God.
Americans get everything?
I
Mark, don't deserve it.
Mark, I'm in your walls, Mark!
Of the earth. Tyler Joseph.
No, but just imagine
I'm sorry, you went
moment
into
this
religious
is for Josh.
Jesus is the way, and the
Jesus
truth,
loves you.
and the life.
Tyler
would hate you, by the way.
Violism is literally down to
Bro, what is
now they're
this?
not
Ocean
on
by Hill
my
Shut up! Oh my god, I don't care!
Alright. Sorry. I had work earlier today. I work in retail. I gotta talk to people all day. My voice might be just the eensy teensiest bit shot. Okay? So, sorry about that. Truthfully, I'm pretty exhausted. Like, not only am I working like an average of more than 8 hours a day the weekend before Halloween. The past couple nights I've been staying up till nearly the wee hours in the morning, reading Yuri fan fiction, getting an average of around 5 hours of sleep, I think, and I don't know, just that consecutive run, it's starting to get to me. But you know what? Fuck it. Y'all decided you wanted to act up, so we're doing this now. I have one to make like a video essay or something discussing the connection between Christianity and 21 Pilots and, you know, just like how it's talked about, because I think it's really interesting. But, you know, given that y'all can't behave yourselves after one fucking performance, I guess we're gonna do it. And if I try to script it out like an actual scripted video essay, it's not gonna be up until middle of 2026, and this feels like too important, too weighty to like do it incredibly like entirely off the cuff either. So lucky for you fuckers, I wrote down some notes on a blank receipt during the first half of my shift. So we're just gonna run through that, and I'm gonna ramble on, and you're gonna put up with it. And I do have to say, give a disclaimer before we totally jump into this. It is kind of weird to talk about like a person's autobiographical personal art, I guess, and like where do you draw the line between media analysis and not overstepping that line so that you're putting words in someone's mouth that they never said, right? And I think that the band are very aware of this, which I will be getting into later, but you know, I just need to say right away, this is my opinion. This is even just like one interpretation that I have of their music. There are many, many ways to interpret this art. There isn't necessarily a right or wrong way. This is just something that's been on my mind, and it's important, and we need to have a good, actual, real conversation about it. One last thing. I know it's like funny to call this religious psychosis, and you know what, maybe there is like some level of delusion like going on with certain people, or maybe just like getting swept up in the emotion of the moment, but let's not use the word psychosis, okay? As far as I have seen, people haven't really displayed any like psychotic symptoms, and I don't know, just using that clinical term incorrectly in a situation where y'all just are incapable of having an adult conversation, just knock it off. Knock it off. All this fuss is about the song Downstairs by 21 Pilots off of their latest album Breach. However, it's actually a demo that Josh saved from 2011, and you can very much tell that just in how the song's constructed. They even got some old vocals from Tyler in there from way back in the day, and also in its content, quite frankly, it's very much in line with what they were talking about back then. Tyler is talking about how he's going to give God everything that he's got. He's feeling insecure and ashamed of how he's like interacting with the world and an ability to be really vulnerable in a comfortable manner. He's self-deprecating a lot and he's literally screaming for mercy. So, you know, the typical Christian experience. I think the main reason why so many fans have latched onto this song is purely for nostalgic reasons. Like, yeah, you can talk about like the vulnerability that's on display and the sentimentality that comes with that, but really I think people yearn for Rabbler. Although there is something to be said with how the song is composed and structured, especially towards the end, which is why there is such a demand for the song to be performed live on the Breach tour. You know, for the Breach album. So the event that sparked all of this, right? 21 Pilots had a smaller, more intimate show at the Bellwether. It was basically the Clancy Breach tour setlist shortened down, but they added downstairs, and y'all just fucking lost it. Which, you know what? Valid. Whatever. I love that for you. At first on my timeline, I saw a lot of people like being really excited that they saw it, being angry that like they missed it, being angry that people that they don't like saw it, whatever. I don't really keep up with what goes on between people. And then strangely enough, there were like more and more tweets pouring onto the timeline about how the performance was like akin to like some sort of religious experience, I guess. And you can see in the video that Mark shot and uploaded to the band's YouTube channel, Josh and Tyler taking deep breaths, just like really mentally preparing themselves for what they're about to do. Towards the end, Tyler's kneeling on the ground, looking up, maybe to God. I don't know. That's not for me to decide. And his voice is shaking. Getting back to that nostalgia factor. And yes, also the vulnerability and the sentimentality and, you know, just this build up, this excitement of wanting to hear this on tour. I think it was a very emotional moment, and because of the, I don't even know whether to call it like explicit or if they're undertones, because people, like their backgrounds and their awareness of these certain religious topics, some people don't catch on to it, while some people say it's very obvious, but you know, it was a moment, basically, just like all these factors like swirling into this mess, and now we're here. So let's talk about it a bit. The comments were actually pretty lighthearted at first, referring back to the sentiment of, do you actually like church or do you just like live music? Or, you know, just fans talking about that God was literally in the room with them. And, you know, you had some Christians, you know, like treasuring the moment, finding like happiness and safety and just having this like space to enjoy this thing that's really personal to them. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with that, and I don't think we should get on people's case about that, because, you know, like, we all draw the things that we need to from this art, and, you know, as long as it's not hurting anybody, then I don't see what the big deal is. We shouldn't, like, laugh at or bully people for believing the things that they do, as long as they're not hurting anyone, right? But then things got really messy really fast. Even before this show happened, right? After the album's release, I had seen like a handful of comments coming from non-religious people about how songs like Downstairs and Drag Path, oh my god, especially Drag Path, like how they just didn't see how those songs had like any religious context at all. And I get that if you're non-religious and you haven't had like that background and understanding, and if you're ignorant about those things, like maybe you don't see it, and that's fine. But like to go so far as to like invalidate that interpretation, which, you know, is wrong on like some levels, but I fundamentally disagree. But we're gonna get into that later. To have people making certain comments or even jokes saying that it's not that serious, for the Christians that had just had like this emotional moment to be then met with like invalidation or like maybe even attacks, whether those were real or perceived, well, they didn't take that so well. So now what the discourse has devolved into basically is that on one side of the aisle, you have some Christians proselytizing to people that very much do not want to be proselytized to, and also encouraging that their fellow Christians should engage in that behavior because it's what the band would want, which is so gross for so many reasons. And then on the other side, you have people saying things that are coming from a place of their own deep personal religious trauma, saying stuff like, it's like, oh, when Tyler said that Violism was the antagonist of the story, he actually meant that, you know, it's basically Christian nationalism, and he's also in an abusive relationship with God. Like, whoa, can we pump the brakes a little bit? So, you know, I really appreciate Josh and Tyler for giving the people what they want, because I do agree Downstairs is a great song and it should be played live, but I don't know, maybe they could have gate kept this one, maybe. So let's break down where all of this is coming from, which, you know, I need to start with the fact that we are losing the ancient texts. like 21 Pilots is not a Christian band, but they are Christians. Just go listen to self-titled. Knock it in your fucking noggins, okay? There are religious themes in this music. Educate yourselves. Like, I'm not saying you need to, like, go to church or go to a Bible study or something, but come on. Oh my fucking God. I'm not going to get into every single little thing, otherwise we would be here for hours, and also I don't think I'm even qualified for that, because even though I did get into this band while I was still Christian, and I was a Christian for 20 years, I've been removed from it for 5 years. Even before, like, there was stuff that I missed, so it's just too much. Like, there are Reddit threads about it, probably. Go out and do your own research, but for now, you're just gonna have to take my word for it, okay? Although, I will say, to give credit where credit is due, I think Tyler has done a really amazing job of writing about these specific feelings while also giving it a quality of ambiguity to be universally relatable. So, I mean, of course it makes sense that these themes would fly under the radar for people that just didn't know, and I think that's really cool. And the reason why it succeeds so well at like this quality of hiddenness, I guess, is because these religious themes are the vast majority of the time being presented in a lens of doubt and guilt and insecurity, and you know, it just so happens that the feelings that come with religious doubt also overlap with symptoms of mental illness, which is something that anyone from any background could relate to. I mean, the question is, does religion exacerbate those issues? And this is where it gets interesting. What I think some people have either forgotten or didn't know about or just blatantly choosing to ignore is that this entire narrative of Dima and Trench and the Banditos and Clancy and the Bishops, all of it came from a crisis of faith. Literally. That is literally confirmed by Tyler Joseph in an interview. I am not making this shit up. So let's go over all the pieces of the puzzle, their barest, simplest forms of what they represent that we can all agree on. Dima, as a concept, is this place of, like, something that you are familiar with, but it's also suffocating you and you want to leave there. Like, who knows if it's somewhere that you've been for your entire life, or if it's just something that you've grown so accustomed to that it basically feels like that. Trench is the place between two places, right? It's the unknown. It's not knowing exactly where you're going. So we all know that the character of Blurryface represents Tyler's insecurities, and that the bishops are basically like an expansion of that. Each bishop has jurisdiction over like one specific thing, like one specific insecurity. insecurity. And, you know, we don't get the backstory on all of the bishops, but I will get deeper into the two that matter in just a moment. And then Clancy, basically that's the part of you that is trying to escape the bad places in your mind that you shouldn't be, right? That is the part of you that fights back in your insecurities with the aim to, like, in the end, win and overcome. Like, that is your fighting spirit. Unless, did you make that up? So the band have been very open and upfront about how much the fan base inspires the narrative through line of these last few records. I do not know the quote verbatim, but like I know the sentiment was basically Clancy was a character. It was a missing piece that was born from the clique's dedication to the story. So with that in mind, and with the benefit of hindsight and just thinking about the events of the last few days, I've kind of pieced together a narrative of the sequence of events of these last few records, my interpretation of the lore. This is not objectively correct, by the way. I'm not going to fucking say that. I don't even know if I am hitting the mark or completely missing it. Maybe time will tell. We don't even know, right? But I have thoughts. My starting point is operating within the context of that interview that I brought up earlier, and also Morph. Like, keep Morph in mind. Morph is very important. Getting back to the two bishops now, we have Nico and we have Keon's. We know that Nico is blurry face. Tyler's insecurity about his self-expression, I think. What he creates. His throat and his hands, right? What he says, what he makes. Keon's, I think, is representative of his insecurity with faith. With Tyler, what he's been doing for a decade, basically, is that he's splitting himself up. We have the Tyler that wants to be a good person, that wants to do the right thing, and then we have the Tyler that is insecure and does bad things. We have blurry face. Tyler versus blurry face. Then we have blurry face split up even further, compartmentalized even further into these, like, specific sections, breaking it down even smaller. Who's to say that if there's, like, something that Tyler himself, the positive Tyler, something that he doesn't want to face as himself, who's to say that he won't separate, like, the positives down and compartmentalize them and split them up even further, right? At the same time, while we have Tyler versus Nico, or blurry face, we also have Clancy and Keon's. Like, is this tracking? Is this making sense to you? He's morphing to someone else. So I've got the first Clancy letter in front of me right now. So Clancy says that he had his realization in his 9th year. Now, I know we all kind of, like, freak out because it's like, oh, it's number 9, because, you know, it's just, like, inherently its own thing, like 6, 7, or whatever the kids are saying these days, right? But this is what I've chosen to do with my time. Alright, so the 9th year, that could be referring to one of two things, I think. It could be either referring to 9 years in Tyler's time, either, like, writing music or being a musician, you know, having his career. And I think either way it lines up, because this would have been, like, post blurry face, his band blowing up, just getting a lot of attention and not knowing where to direct that next. Or it could also mean 9th year as in the school level grade, just starting out high school, which is, you know, the time in life when people start thinking about just, like, the existential things, just like Tyler said. So either way, I think it's appropriate. So as he ponders these big questions, Clancy looks outside of himself to the things that have always inspired him. But then he looks out even further and realizes that the world is so much bigger than he could even imagine, and that his view is being obstructed by the city now. I don't know how much y'all know about what it's like to live as a Christian, but basically you can't really do much. So the thing about living within Christianity, and even if we like put aside the rules, you know, like the certain things that you are not allowed to do within like different sects that will be like more strict or less strict than others, that discrepancy doesn't really matter, because at the core of it, it's not about what you as a person want, it's what is good, what is the right thing to do, because it's what God wants for you, has commanded, is within his will, basically. Like, you are basically like living your life where you're not at the reins. It's not you. You are doing everything for something else. And it does feel like routine. It does feel like the same song and dance, which, you know, y'all fucking hear that? And I'm not about to say that like following a routine or taking like these certain steps just because like that's just the way it is, that's the way that it's always been done, that's just the thing that you need to do. That's not like an exclusively religious thing. I know that's something that anyone can relate to regardless of their background. But what I will say, however, that I think that didn't come out of nowhere, alright? You didn't fall out of a coconut tree. It came from somewhere. I think it did in part come from that sense of like, you need to contribute to this because it is something bigger than you, and you as an individual are irrelevant. Of course, I think capitalism plays a role too, but that's relevant. I think something to note too is how Keon's is characterized, both like in Clancy's letters and also his role in the story, because we are told that he is not ruthless like the other bishops. He is gentle and loving, and I think that's because Keon's, like, his representation of Tyler's insecurity is not entirely Tyler, because with faith, it's not just about you, it's God as well. So if God's mercy is implemented into this character that represents this insecurity, like, are you tracking along with my logic here? I'm autistic, so I can't articulate things off the cuff very well, but do you get what I'm saying here? What I feel the need to iterate again is that this is just one singular interpretation I have of the story. Like, I'm not sure if it's even like the interpretation, and it's very metaphorical, and you know, maybe it's probably not even just Tyler, like there's maybe some Josh in there too, but he gets overlooked because he's not the guy singing it, but I just relate to Tyler more, but I don't want to put words in his mouth, and this is all very difficult, so just let me exist as a person that is consuming media and trying to understand it and analyze it. Okay, so my interpretation of the events with the OG Clancy, which is this metaphorical figure, it is this version of Tyler that exists in this like very specific spot in his mind that is like trying to get to the bottom of what the heck is up with this specific insecurity that he has. And you know, Clancy is the Tyler that he wants to be, the positive aspects of him. This character separates himself from like this part of his mind. He separates himself from his insecurity and he goes out and explores the unknown. And by separating himself, he is not only separating himself from like the Tyler that is insecure, but he's also separating himself from God, because I think Keon's is both of that to a certain extent. So then, as Clancy is exploring the unknown, it's exhilarating. He is excited. He is feeling unsure of himself. He's just trying to really take it all in. So Clancy, which is the version of Tyler that's trying to confront this crisis of faith, and he's trying to imagine what a world without God looks like, which is what Trench is, remember. Okay, so this Clancy, one day, he sees an interaction with the Tyler that we have gotten to know through like his presentation of like his battle between himself and Nico, like this battle of him fighting over like feeling secure over his self-expression and his mental health. He sees that struggle and Clancy gets scared. So then as Clancy explores the unknown and wild territory of Trench, he grows weary and he's also like kind of yearning to go back to Dima, but you know, he's just like, no, how could I ever think of going back there now after everything that I've seen, after, you know, feeling like that it was this trap for me. But he's not in such a great spot right now either. Like he's not really sure where he's going, and that interaction between Tyler and Nico is playing in the back of his mind. So when you like take the characters and story out of it and then like look at it like in that metaphorical sense and what this represents of like Tyler like exploring this new mindset and just like being back and forth of whether he like knows what he's doing, whether this is what he wants to be doing, while at the same time like his struggles just always being present and him being wary about that. Like, yeah, I get it, dude, that is scary, especially like when you like depended on this thing for so long to keep you safe, to keep you alive, to just voluntarily decide to go without that. Like, is this making sense? And then one day Keon shows up and it's like, hey buddy, do you want to go home? And Clancy's like, yes, please. So when Clancy is back in Dima, he questions if he made the right choice. Did he give up? Hold on to those words, those are important. Clancy's mind is going back and forth between Dima and Trench, and he questions where he belongs, whether he is doing the right thing. He admits that there is still so much that he doesn't understand, and that is the last we hear from him. Now, pulling it back, looking at it through a metaphorical lens and what it could represent for like this story, this narrative version of Tyler that he's presenting to us, what I think might be happening here, it is kind of open to interpretation too, because I'm not sure, but there are like 2 to 3 different scenarios running through my head here. So one, this could be a cycle. We know that with Tyler and Nico, you know, leaving the city, coming back, trying to beat Nico, but becoming Nico, like that repeats itself. That is a cycle. It wouldn't surprise me if the dynamic of Keon's and Clancy is also what's happening there, because I know that from personal experience, having doubts within religion, that is very cyclical in nature. The other thing that I think could have happened is that Tyler deliberately got rid of Clancy. He got rid of the version of himself facing that specific insecurity, and as to why he did it, it's really open to interpretation, and it's not really any of our places to say for certain about him as a person. But as far as like the narrative goes, I do have a couple of theories. So one thing that I think maybe could have happened is that Tyler came to accept that he doesn't understand and he can't understand. What reason is there to fight something that can't necessarily be fought? Why try to understand something that can't be understood? Why try to like get to this ultimate place of not having any doubts when that just isn't possible? Finding acceptance and peace within himself about like being on that uncertain ground and just being okay with it. My other theory as to why Tyler got rid of Clancy is that it didn't work per se. Compartmentalizing himself, he couldn't separate it fully, and he went back and still has doubts. Or maybe it was just like him kind of exploring like the possibility of not being a Christian anymore. But as far as we're aware today, Tyler is still a Christian. Either way, there isn't a need for Clancy anymore. So in a sense, Clancy is dead. But then the click happened. Okay, stay with me here. Okay, we are really getting into the meat of it now. I am ready to drive my point home. I promise this is all gonna tie back to the discourse surrounding downstairs, okay? And, you know, maybe this is just an excuse for me to talk about the religious themes of 21 Pilots music, but can you fucking blame me? Actually, you know what? While we're at it, let's talk about Downstairs. I feel like this is an appropriate time to talk about the song itself. Downstairs basically is Tyler struggling to be vulnerable, and he wants to give himself fully, and the only way he is able to do that, to feel safe to do that, is through his music, which tracks what we've heard through his other songs and through interviews over the years why he's doing this. So think about it. This mentally ill kid writing and singing songs about his own struggles and sharing them with the world to find some sense of community. He finds it, and people latch onto his work. They are inspired by him. They tell him their stories, and they just kind of share this bond of they're trying to find purpose, trying to stay alive, and give each other reassurance and courage and strength. Them latching onto him as this guiding light, which he accepts. Like, he wants to shoulder this too out of love. Like, he will gladly take on this title of a role model. And thus, Ty Clancy. Skilled and Icy is a weird detour because it was the Pandemic album, but I think it gives us some really interesting foreshadowing of what's to come, because you have this new Clancy, I guess. We have him able to create again, but he has to do it in the presence of the bishops for their benefit. This thing that he used to express himself, it is now fully within the jurisdiction of his insecurities. So within the story, on the surface, right, it's obvious what the propaganda of Skill and Icy is trying to accomplish. You know, it's trying to make Hadima look like this good place. It's trying to appear as though everything is fine and cheerful when really it's not. But there is another more serious aspect to it that has largely gone overlooked until this moment. Clancy is gifted the miraculous power that the bishops also hold, which is to take something that was once dead and turn it into a weapon in order to accomplish something. Now is where we talk about Violism and how it is kind of the antithesis to Christianity, but also kind of mirrors it as well. So both religions preach that self-destruction is the way to paradise. How this works in Christianity is that man is inherently sinful because of our disobedience against God. And what God has done through Jesus is that he has redeemed us from that punishment. So in order to have that eternal life, the sinful part within us has to die. Of course, again, human beings are not perfect. So when you have the threat of eternal damnation looming over your head because it's out of your control that you can't act like this perfect person, that can send someone into a spiral. It's a self-enforcing cycle. You can't be perfect so that you feel bad about it, and you feel bad about feeling bad about it, and it just spirals and spirals until you totally lose yourself. Self-destruction in the way that you shouldn't do it. That is Violism. The thing about Christianity too is that it is encouraged that you lead your life in a godly manner, not only because it'll make God happy just for the sake of it, but because it is to be a light for others to lead back to him, because you are a vessel for God. Basically, like, the Holy Spirit lives in you. And not to say this definitively, by the way, this is just my personal experience, and also to show the other side of the coin. If you don't have some sort of faith in you, and in its place is fear and despair, it's like you have killed that part of you that has hope for the future, right? And you take something that is now dead, and then it becomes this weapon of perpetuating destruction. Because when you're hurting, it's not just you that's hurting, it's also affecting the people around you. Which not to guilt or blame anyone for their circumstances, but you get what I mean, right? So the mentally ill kid that was writing and making music to cope with his struggles, he's a man now, and he has people counting on him, looking to him to be their leading example. He keeps doing the music partly to be that leading light for them, and partly to just keep going back to his insecurities, trying to fight something that can't be fought, because he is human and he is imperfect and he is going to screw up, but he has to put on a brave face. Part of why I love the Clancy album so much is because it is him like starting to get more comfortable in that vulnerability. For example, sharing about his college experience, or getting older and realizing that it's okay that he still has these fears because he's had them before and he knows how to get through it. But also, on the other hand, he is like, I am about to screw up. I am going to relapse. This is not good. I am going to mess up. Guys, hello. Can you hear me? And then we get to Breach, and he's like,
Oh my god, guys, I fucking lied. I'm a fucking fraud, okay? I'm not doing well. Ah!
It's like this paradox of him using this pain as a superpower while also being ashamed of it and hiding it and forgetting why he feels it, or maybe why he needs to feel it in the first place. So if he keeps going back to that well, again, tries to fight something that cannot be fought, giving this performance of control and power while knowing inevitably that he is going to fail over and over again. Like, it seems like a false promise, and at some point you have to ask, is he perpetuating the very thing he's supposed to be fighting against? Hence him becoming a bishop at the end of the story. Alright, so this part is actually going to be like scripted, because when I tried to articulate my thoughts around midnight last night, it didn't go so well. So these are my thoughts, the story condensed down, but you probably don't want to be watching this video for much longer. So I did not like Breach's ending. The narrative implications of the end of the lore like kind of threw me for a loop for a couple days. I ain't even gonna lie. I'm not saying that I was in denial, expecting everything to be sunshine and rainbows, because I know how this works, but I think I'm really struggling with the finality of it in its presentation, because up until this point we have had hopeful undertones, promises of a better future, crying out for help, I don't know, just anything that can give us reason to keep going. What we have at the end here is just this defeated resignation. To have all of that buildup just fall flat on its face, it fucking stings, dude. And choosing that to be the end point of the story, even being aware that this is a cycle and you need to try again no matter what, it leaves a bad taste in my mouth. You're just left with the sentiment of, what's the point? What's the point in even trying when this is how it's going to end every single time? And I can definitely agree with the core message of trying to make peace with the fact that as long as you're alive, you are never going to be immune from your own personal struggles. But I don't know, I just think that the presentation was unnecessarily heartbreaking, and it could very well be a reflection of how Tyler is doing right now, which ties back into my point about how there is a lot of pressure in being a beacon of hope for others as an artist while you yourself are struggling. But then Drag Path came out and everything changed. Drag Path is the meta commentary that this album so desperately needed to tie everything together, because it brings us back to where everything started. Yes, Tyler is going back to his insecurities again and again with the intention to overcome them, knowing that he'll never fully win, but that's just part of the story. He's documenting his struggles as proof that they didn't kill him. It is evidence for the listener to unravel, to understand that there is an inherent hope to be found, because there would be no reason to hope without a struggle also being present. The theodicy of contrast and highlighting the greater good, if you will, which is a popular argument in response to the problem of evil. You know, if God is all good, then why does evil exist? Which is a common thing for Christians to think about when they are struggling with their faith. Having been there, having had that be the thing to break me, actually. So you can definitely make the argument that this song is for the clique. It's like, oh, I am being vulnerable and sharing my struggles, and you found this. You found me, and we share this together, and that gives me hope that I am not alone, and it gives you hope that you're not alone either. But I think this is also definitely one answer to whatever struggle that Tyler has with his faith, and that made me realize that I can no longer project myself onto him, because you have to understand that as a teenager that was really in the wrong place and didn't know it at the time, didn't know that I had the option to leave, but hearing him like talk so openly about his struggles and his doubts that really resonated with me, with what he is proposing, it may not have worked for me, but it works for him, and that's what he is telling us. So when we look at the narrative again, right, with this lens, and we look back at what Keon's, what he means, what has he done for Clancy? He brought him back from the unknown when he was weary and scared and kind of worried about his other struggles present in his life. He betrayed the other bishops to help Clancy try and bring down Dima and fight against the other bishops. While Tyler may feel insecure over his faith at times, it is also what helps him face things that can do him more harm. It is God saving him. What Dragpath showed me is that this music all along always has been, is that it's for him to express himself, and it also works that he is also doing this for him to give himself to us. And therein lies the issue with this fucking downstairs discourse, because y'all are getting so fucking lost in the sauce that you are forgetting the man in the narrative. He is getting lost in the narrative. Do you fucking understand that? Again, I cannot speak for this man. I do not know him personally. What I've seen is that, you know, when asked about it, he'll talk about his religious beliefs for a little bit in interviews, and he still writes about God, and he put a dedication to God and Clancy, and he still goes to, or is at least like involved with his church. I think that's what I have to go off of, as well as what he's like said and written about his religion in the past. So now to see people from both sides of the aisle storming in and saying what they think, which they have a right to do, but also you have to remember that Tyler is his own separate entity. Like, there is a person behind the art that you are consuming, and I know I just like spent however many minutes putting together like my story or what have you. Can we be adults here? Is all I'm asking. And that's hard to do, apparently. So based on my interpretation of what Tyler is putting down, do I totally agree with his stance? No, I find a lot of problems with it, actually. I have a right to feel that way and to express what I find issues with. What I can say with confidence, however, is that I think the band would really like that I feel that way, that I feel strongly about it, that I want to articulate it, that I am that I am able to articulate, even though I'm really fucking tired right now, because that is the point of this band. Clear. I will tell you what I can, but your mind will take a stand. Car radio, which maybe if they kept it on the set list, this wouldn't have been a fucking issue. Try to think. That is what he's trying to get us all to do. I will try with every rhyme to come across like I'm dying to let you know you need to try to think. When you think about what is important to you and how you want your life to be, that gives you purpose and motivation to keep going and being a better person. Isle of Flightless Birds, it's time you pick your battle, and I promise you this is mine. Are we clear on that now? You can all feel however you want to feel. Just keep it respectful, keep it civil, don't make it too weird. Okay? Yeah. That's that. So if you enjoy hearing me yap, you love the sound of my voice, you want to hear more of my thoughts regarding these oh-so-fun topics, I made a video recently about Trump's fundraising email trying to get his stupid fucking ass into heaven and everything I find wrong with that. I made I made a concept album last year about the existential crisis I had for a year and then deconverted. You can subscribe if you want. You won't hurt my feelings. I kind of suck.